Welcome to the Legion Club tonight. It's good to see such a good turnout on what promises to be not a good night later on anyway, weather-wise. My name is Stephen Carter and I am the captain of the parish of Lonnon, and I've been asked to chair this meeting tonight. The Mayor was unavailable, and in any case, by having somebody independent, as there is a possibility that the actions of the council may be called into question this evening, it is quite normal in these situations to bring somebody else in from outside. Just before we go any farther, I'd just like to point out the fire exits. So the fire exits are behind us at the stage here. One there, and where you came in at the back there. And I'm sure most people will know where the facilities are, just to the side of the bar there. This, I must have put, also the Mayor, Councillor Dominey, sends her apologies that she can't be here this evening anyway. Now, the purpose of the meeting tonight is a requisition meeting, and I shall read out the letter which was sent to the Mayor, to her worship, and we, the undersigned, being electors of the City of Douglas, request that an urgent public requisition meeting be called for the attendance of the Leader of the Council and the Chairman of the Environmental Services Committee to explain in public forum the changes made to refuse collection, their impact on our community, and to take related public questions from those in attendance. Now, what I propose to do this evening, firstly, the press have been asked if they could come, and they've been allowed to come tonight, and there will be filming and recording what goes on. If anybody doesn't wish to be on record from that point of view, well, please consider your position. So what's going to happen this evening is that I'm going to invite the Leader of the Council, Councillor Claire Wells, on my left, and we also have Councillor Falk Horning on my left, who is the Chairman of the Environmental Committee, and Councillor Wells is going to make a statement first, and then I'm going to open the meeting for questioning from the audience. I would be grateful if you want to ask a question, if you can put your hand up, and please just try and ask one question at a time, otherwise everybody will not get a chance to answer questions, and inevitably there may be duplicate questions, but I would just try and keep it as brief as you possibly can so that we can progress. So without further ado, I'm just going to now introduce Councillor Wells to make her statement. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Captain Carter. Good evening and welcome to everyone present, and thank you for coming along. I would like to take this opportunity to explain the timeline of how we reached the place we are now, answer some of your questions, and allay some misinformation. 17 years ago, the government ran a curbside recycling trial in Douglas, Unken and Braddon. At the end of the trial, the government was not able to continue with the scheme. However, Douglas Council felt it was the environmentally responsible thing to do, and has, to this day, continued to provide the service to Douglas and at times Braddon residents. There's a sneeze coming, so I'm sorry when it arrives eventually.
Councillor Wells, could you take the microphone for the people at the back so they can hear you? Thank you.
I've got to negotiate now the microphone and the paper, so just trying to give me a bit of a chance here. Okay. At the time of the rollout, every household was provided with boxes and information. Since that time, despite numerous campaigns to encourage its use, the overall tonnage of material collected through the scheme, and therefore the council's recycling rate, has remained static. Further initiatives to encourage recycling following feedback have included the introduction of brown cardboard collection and a wider variety of plastics, various leaflet drops and door knocking. However, despite all efforts, the overall amount of material captured and therefore the recycling rate remained static at 5 to 6%, or even declined from when it was first introduced, despite the fact that we know there is material that can be recycled in refuse bins. From time to time, the council conducts compositional waste analysis of household bins. This involves going through the material placed in collected black bins to determine its composition. For example, how much of it is true residual waste for the energy from waste plants, how much of it is true residual waste, oh, I said that twice, how much is garden waste, and how much can otherwise be reprocessed in line with the government's waste strategy and waste hierarchy of reduce, reuse, and recycle. In 2018, a question was put to the Council on how it could significantly increase materials that can be recycled and therefore the Council's recycling rates. This led to a more in-depth analysis of waste, which showed that on average, there was at least 1/3, usually more, of material being placed in the black wheelie bins that could be recycled. This is an average figure as each household is different and some households put out more glass and others more plastics, etc. This average was also based on weight, and of course some material being placed was light and took up lots of space, so bottles, boxes, etc. A compositional analysis was undertaken covering 3 different demographic areas which have been used in the past to help measure changes in the composition of waste. Typically, of the 10 bins collected for analysis, less than half were full, and when recyclable materials were removed from all the bins that were full, the residual waste remaining only filled 3 of the 10 bins analysed. This demonstrates that capacity was available for fortnightly refuse collections with recycling. The Council also undertakes recycling participation monitoring in several areas of Douglas. This involves waste services staff over several weeks visiting a street immediately before the curbside collection is due to see how many households have set out. This provides a percentage of those in that street who are recycling. After the monitoring, waste service staff, often accompanied by a counsellor, will drop leaflets in the area and door knock to encourage households to recycle, dropping off recycling boxes and information. The exercise is then repeated to calculate the increase in recycling, and there is always a positive increase. All the research undertaken highlighted that the most successful means of capturing the most material to be recycled was to reduce residual capacity. This structural change has been applied successfully in several other countries, such as France, Germany, as well as the UK. The Council's calculations, which were deliberately conservative, highlighted that if all material that could be recycled and garden waste was removed from the black wheelie bins, there would be sufficient capacity for a household of 4 people. And 95% of households in Douglas have 4 or fewer people to receive a fortnightly residual collection. The change in service, therefore, was not just about going to fortnightly residual collections, but also introducing a new garden waste collection service for those households who were eligible. Now, I'm aware that not all the households have gardens, but this means that they are not producing the green waste to need extra capacity. Asking households to present their waste differently enables us to dispose of it more environmentally responsible way. Therefore, with many questions from Council members having been answered and an awful lot more information to hand, the decision was made with an overwhelming 11 for and 1 against at the Council's public rate setting meeting in January to move to alternate weekly collections. Unfortunately, at that meeting, it was misreported by the media as being an initiative to save £25,000. This was never the reason for the change in service, and given that the Council has been discussing it since 2018, shows that it was a decision that was not taken lightly. After the decision was made to change the service, the Council set out communicating the change. It did this through various platforms to ensure it reached all households, including a notification in the Rates newsletter, which went out in early 2022, a further leaflet distribution to every household during the summer. There were articles and advertisements in local newspapers and magazines, over 200 radio adverts on all the nation's radio stations, played at different times of the day from mid-August until the end of September. This included 4 that were run during the broadcast of the Mannin Line, a show that spoke about this change on numerous occasions. A multitude of posts on social media. Waste officers attended political surgeries to answer questions from constituents, and 3 roadshows, including 1 in Strand Street, 1 at the Council's Fun Day, and 1 at the Food and Drink Festival. At these roadshows, officers could answer questions, give advice, provide boxes, bags, leaflets, and other recycling information. The campaign ran from late spring until after the change in service was introduced in the autumn. To help all households transition to the revised service, the garden waste service was introduced first and ran alongside the weekly residual waste collection service for 1 month. Due to the high impact this would have on our staff, it was only sustainable for a very short period, and at this junction, I would like it to be noted that we have listened to feedback on the service, and from next year it will run from February to the end of November. Again, to help households adjust once the residual collections moved to fortnightly, the crews were asked to take side waste for 1 month. Once that period was over, the normal policy of not taking side waste was continued. Some households were already recycling, so for them it was a very easy transition, especially with the addition of a garden waste collection service. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for helping Douglas as it continues to do what is right for our environment by recycling as much as we can. We can establish that those households struggling fall into 2 main categories. Those who, through specific features of their lifestyle, are producing more waste than average, and those who are not fully engaging with the waste service provided by the council. On the former, it was always recognised that there would be some households who, due to the household size or specific circumstances, would produce more waste than average and would need to be assisted. For these households, we will provide additional capacity and have done so when they have been brought to our attention. To provide the most suited solution to a particular household's need, a visit from one of our offices is required. Such visits are quick, painless and unintrusive, and generally do not involve a member of Waste Services rummaging I'll get through it, through people's rubbish. Although I am told that people who are genuinely concerned about their ability to cope are keen to show what they are doing and how they are struggling. Often a little education and awareness is all that is needed to help, but when extra capacity is needed, that is provided as quickly as possible and usually within 2 weeks. For those who are not fully engaging with the waste service provided by the council, they are being encouraged to recycle and no additional capacity is provided until they at least try. This really is the crux of the matter. Households give various reasons for why they can't or won't recycle. Some say that they don't have space for the boxes. The boxes are stackable when not in use, so take up little room until set out. If space is a genuine issue, then there are things the council can do to assist these households. We have in some areas, and where it is possible, installed communal recycling bins. If space is truly limited, then we encourage households to recycle at least one material, and that material will be different from household to the next, from one household to the next. One may produce a lot of glass, the other more cardboard, so we encourage them to recycle the material they produce the most of, as some recycling is better than none at all. If after all the avenues have been explored and extra capacity is still needed, we will provide it. Some households say they don't like the box system or the boxes themselves, saying they blow away when empty, the contents blow out when the boxes are full, and they perish over time. Some say they don't think the boxes are big enough to capture all that they have to recycle, so here is some information which may help you. You can have as many boxes as you need. Every box comes with either a net or plastic cover. If you lose these, you can get them replaced, and this will stop materials in the boxes being blown out. In addition, we are getting a stock of boxes with hinged lids, which some households may prefer. We will happily replace cracked or broken boxes. For all of these things, all you need to do is ask. It's okay to put something in your box to stop them blowing around. Some households use a small brick or a stone. The crews will empty your boxes and they will place them all together, and whatever you've used to keep the box in place, they will put in the top box. They will also try and put the boxes behind a wall or somewhere where if the weather is particularly manx and blowy, they won't blow away. The boxes are used globally where there is a curbside service and have been specifically designed ergonomically for lifting and carrying by households and waste collectors. That is why they cannot be bigger and are the size and shape they are. They've been used for decades, so it is a tried and tested system. Those of you with family and friends across will know that some authorities use a system where all material that can be recycled goes into a wheelie bin or a bag, or certain materials go into specific bags or bins. These systems are known as commingled and twin stream recycling, and while they may seem to be more convenient for households and the authorities concerned, they are much less efficient than the curbside system. If we were to move to this type of system, a new facility would need to be built for sorting, which is not economically viable for Douglas residents. However, if there was an island-wide initiative to move to the system, managed and funded centrally, then the situation may be different. Some households state that they do not recycle because they can't be bothered or don't believe in it. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and it is for them to manage their waste accordingly. The council is providing a waste disposal service which is aimed at recycling all we can, which, if properly engaged with, provides sufficient capacity and does work. If the benefits of recycling, which have been around and proven for decades, does not convince you, then who are we to try? The island is justly proud of its green credentials. I am proud to call it home, but to be so far behind other jurisdictions in the way it manages its waste is a travesty. The council, following the government's current waste strategy, has taken the lead on the island in this matter. Social media can be both a blessing and a curse. Misinformation is believed as truth with little or no validation. We are aware of the photographs that have been circulating. Some are not related at all to the change in waste service and just demonstrates incorrect disposal of items that aren't taken as part of the refuse service and never have been. What most pictures show is side waste, a lot of which can be recycled, and you must question why there is side waste in the first place. Is the household not fully engaging with the service provided? And if it is because there are genuine capacity issues at that particular property brought about by structural constraints, then we are and will continue to assist them by providing more capacity. If your property has genuine concerns, get in touch with us. If you are not recycling already, ask for recycling boxes. If your boxes are already full, ask for additional boxes. And if you are still regularly having black bin issues, please ask for assistance. These photographs really highlight those addresses that are not recycling, and we need to encourage these households to do so. Some of the photographs are of bin stores for flat complexes. We gave careful consideration to the situation in flats and apartments. These units mostly have shared bin stores and communal bins. We were careful to visit and calculate if they had sufficient capacity based on assumed full capacity. No, occupancy, not capacity, sorry. Over several years, we have rolled out recycling to flats, and where there is insufficient capacity for recycling, we provided a weekly recycling collection service, which most other households do not get. Flats had a cardboard collection service long before other households, and some flats don't have boxes, but they have wheeled bins for each type of material. Most flats have more than one bin store. Sometimes one is used for refuse and the other recycling, but more often than not, they are mixed. We have been closely monitoring flats for any capacity issues, and where we have found any, we have acted by providing more capacity, or in one isolated case, amending the collection frequency. What these photographs don't show, but we know through our monitoring, for the most part, the issues caused in flats are due to one bin store being overused, while the recycling facilities and alternative bin stores are underused. It is not for our waste service operators to sort out bin stores. This falls on the management companies to engage with the residents of the blocks to act in a reasonable manner. If you live in a flat, please forward the contact details of your management company to us so we can engage with them if we haven't already. Again, if there are genuine concerns about capacity, we will monitor it and adjust so that these complexes can manage. We are not applying a one-size-fits-all approach, as has been portrayed. We are flexing where we need to flex, but lack of evidence of capacity issues and underused recycling facilities are not the ingredients to return to weekly refuse collections. Comments have been made on the health risks associated with fortnightly refuse collections. Of all the scientific papers we have read, none conclude that there is a health risk for households associated with fortnightly collections. That fortnightly collections have been common practice in Europe for some 30 years, the UK for some 20 years, and on the island for several years adds weight to this. Indeed, there are studies available which have reviewed international research which concludes there is no risk to the public of fortnightly collections provided basic hygiene is followed. There has been anecdotal reports of increased vermin since the service change was introduced. While these anecdotes are concerning, there is no strong evidence to link vermin sightings with the change in waste service. We discussed this quite early on with the environmental health, and they confirmed our understanding that if waste is placed inside the wheelie bins, it will not be an attractor for vermin. This has been borne out by the experience of other parishes who have operated fortnightly collections for several years. If, however, side waste is being left out containing organic materials, then that is likely to be an attractor, but you must ask why such materials are being left out, and this brings us full circle to the issue of recycling. If residents engaged fully with the waste service the council provides, there would be no need to put side waste containing organic material out that could attract vermin in the first place. And if these residents genuinely cannot recycle or have limited recycling capacity, then we will give them extra refuge capacity. Concern has been raised about our waste collectors. All our staff were consulted on the revised rounds, and there was always going to be a period of bedding in as the public adjusted. We continue to tweak these rounds to manage workloads and weight, and none of the operatives have had cause to work past their contractual hours per week. Most recently, comment has been passed about the impact of this change in service on the amenity site. The amenity site for the East serves 5 authorities and over half of the island's population. We are very closely monitoring both the amounts of green and residual waste being brought to the site. We anticipate a decrease in garden material, and to date we have not seen a trend of an increase in the residual material, nor have we any evidence to support the claims that there are often now long queues at the amenity site. The site has busy days for a variety of reasons, often related to weather and seasonal deviations. If households engaged fully with the waste service the council provides, there would be no waste and there would be no side waste and no need to make trips to the amenity site. Any uplift in residual waste at the site will be offset by the decrease in garden material, so any financial impact on the 4 non-Douglas authorities will be negligible. We will continue to monitor the site for any impact our change of service may have. Carbon implications of this waste service is always a talking point, and we believe them to be broadly neutral, if not in a better position. We do monitor our carbon emissions for the waste service, and it will be some time before we can say for certain whether the emissions have reduced. Intuitively though, the garden waste service has replaced 1 residual journey, and the curbside collections were already taking place. The vehicles are by necessity driving down every street irrespective of whether households set material out, so the more material collected, the less carbon per unit, indicating an improved position. As for the call to revert to weekly collections, at this point it is far too early to claim that the change has not been a success. It has only been operating for 10 weeks. In a year's time, once the service has had an opportunity to bed in and the concerns raised dealt with, we will be looking to conduct a survey of the service. For now, we will continue to address the anticipated problem areas and those brought to our attention. On the whole, Douglas households would say it is working. Most Douglas households, some of whom were concerned about the change, have adapted well and are coping. If anyone here has genuine concerns about their ability to manage due to special circumstances or lack of space, then please reach out to us. We have prepared some sheets for people to fill out. If they want to bring some concerns to our attention and don't want to stand up and speak this evening, they will be on the side over there. And now I've lost my place, so we can all take a deep breath.
We stood on no. Quiet down.
We are here to help and to listen, and are committed to providing a service which supports our environment's ambitions to recycle, whilst assisting those who, due to circumstances outside of their control, are unable to cope. I could talk slower. We are proud to be advised to be a partner and of our green credentials. We see this revised service as supporting them both. So in summary, we are asking Douglas residents to do their bit for our environment and for Douglas. Thank you.
Councillor Wells. We're going to take questions now. I didn't mention before, sorry. If I'm assuming most people here live in Douglas, but if you don't live in Douglas, you are entitled to ask a question, but I would like you to wait until the people from Douglas have had all their questions asked. If you don't live, I don't know whether anybody here doesn't live in Douglas in the area. But anyway, so I'm now going to throw the meeting open for questions. A gentleman here, please, on the grey shirt. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Would you like the microphone, sir?
No, I don't need a microphone, I don't think. I don't think anyone in this room will get that 25 minutes back, quite frankly. The shocking arrogance that just rolls through everything. We're here. All you've done is read a script. You clearly don't want to engage these people. You clearly don't want to back down because you've already made a decision. You seem to be suggesting that your whole policy has been devised by some team of corporation wombles that have been rummaging through people's bins for the last 3 years to work out what the usage is. I mean, it's ridiculous. If you were here to genuinely listen to people, then that is not the way to start it. I guarantee you.
Yes, sir.
Last week I sent some photographs into the town hall and asked them to be circulated to all the commissioners. I don't know whether that happened, I didn't even get an acknowledgement. The photographs were of Mona Terrace Lane. All the owners of Mona Terrace take all their own green waste to the amenity centre, so we don't need any green bins there. But what used to happen when we had weekly collections, occasionally we'd have a little bit of fly tipping. Since it's gone to fortnightly collections, it's regular fly tipping, and the state of the lane is dreadful. How are you going to stop all these fly tippers bringing their rubbish to us?
So, thank you for your question. We understand that there are concerns regarding individual cases all across the city, and that is normal with a big service change like this. We have nearly 12,000 households in Douglas, and it's not going to start perfectly in every location right from the very get-go. In Mona Terrace Lane, I hear that there are some properties that have a large garden, and while not all those properties might use that garden waste collection service, they have the opportunity, and maybe they will find it in time. They'll find that this is a good service for them. Time will tell. Regarding the fly tipping, one question would of course be whether those properties are already recycling. If they are not already recycling, it would be very good if they contacted the council and got the boxes and engaged with the service. Unfortunately, we don't know which property always recycles and which one does not. All across the city, we sometimes have a glimpse at properties, but with 12,000 properties, we can't monitor, of course, every situation. In those, if you see that there are some areas that have a problem, it would be good if those properties are reported with a report a problem function that can be found on the council's website, and then our waste services officer can investigate the issue and see whether this is a one-time problem, whether it is a reoccurring problem, and if it is a reoccurring problem, our waste services officers can also talk to people in the area.
It's only a recurring problem for the last 10 weeks.
Mr. Delaney, can we have the microphone over there, please?
So we can also provide fines for fly tipping. However, we would do this only in very serious cases. Foremost, we would try to engage with the people living in the area, trying to find solutions for them, seeing why exactly they struggle with their waste. So it might be that they don't recycle. It might also be something that they don't have enough residual waste capacity, so we will try to get on the bottom of the problem first, and then if there is really a case where somebody does not want to recycle and just continues to fly tips, then you would probably also go down with the fine route.
I can tell you now that the police only regard it as fly tipping if it's a tipper load, a lorry load.
Okay, can we move on, please?
Apologise for not standing up at the moment. I'm playing football the weekend. I'm keeping my legs. I'm here because a number of people phone me up. They still do this with all of us, ex-members, to get some advice. And the advice is this: they're trying to understand why it is the rates for Douglas were fixed before this decision come out. Before the decision come out to reduce the service. That's a fact, isn't it? Yes or no? Simple answer.
That the rate was set. Yes.
Is that what happened?
That the rate was set.
Yeah, you fixed the rate for Douglas before you changed the policy about collecting for a fortnight rather than a week.
Yes.
You've done that, right? Second thing I'm asking it on somebody else or somebody else. Second thing is, if you've done that, what about the people who pay rent, which includes rates, 1,500 of them, and you fixed their rents before you fixed the rates? Is that correct?
We don't have any input. I'm
I'm
assuming.
sorry, the rates include their waste disposal as well, so they pay for it. They don't give it
Sorry,
free.
excuse me, but your question was about rents.
They pay rates in their rent.
Yes, but your question related to us fixing their rent before the rate. So the answer to your question is
No. Did you fix the rents for the coming year?
Yes, I'm trying to answer that question. So we don't fix the rent for social housing. The rent increase is dealt with by the DOI, and it is them who fix the rent for us.
Yeah, so you had no say in that?
We have no say in
Right,
the
so
social
did you tell them
housing
they were going to
rents.
reduce the services then?
There is, I don't feel, and I appreciate, and I'm trying not to come across as arrogant, that I'm trying to provide as much
Well,
information as I
We'll get down
can.
to that later, shall we? All right, so the answer is you don't know.
No, the answer
Right.
is, I can give you the answer, if you
my
let me
next
finish
question is this.
speaking.
My next question is this, and it's the last one on behalf of the people. In the document, which they've been reading the public, you say that you went always to inform them of the change. I'm asking this. I pay my rates in the first week when they come in, always have done, because the council has it. Right, I need the money, so you pay it. You're going to pay it anyhow by law. What I'm trying to find out is this. When you send a little letter out, which goes out with the rates, explaining what the corporation does for the rates you pay, why didn't you include a notice in that saying you were going to reduce the service down to a week, a fortnight rather than a week? Please give me an answer to that.
There was a notice in the rates that exactly those service changes would take place. It was sent out with the rates newsletter, and with this year's rates we are also going to include a lot of information material to help people to deal with the service changes and explaining some of the common misconceptions. The rates, we probably get to that at some point anyway, is that the waste service changes only make up a certain percentage of the rate demand. So while it is a big part of the rates you pay, it is only a very small part in comparison to all the services that the council provides. And while there are going to be some savings with the scheme, the overall rates that the council has to get are very much impacted by inflation all across the board, and also other things like the public service sector pay rises and the energy from waste plant rises and many other things. So while there might be some savings through the service, all those other pressures combined will probably more than offset that saving.
I'm going to give you a copy of the Landlord and Tenancy Act. which I hope you read, because that covers all the rates and the rents and charges therein. And the situation is, even private landlords can't put fixes against their tenants ahead of what the charges are that they're going to make for that incoming. Yeah. It's there.
Gentleman on the end here.
So you might find yourself in a legal battle. Just give them that with you. Yes, you've got a copy, I'm sure.
I'm not against recycling in slightest. The level of maladministration that's took place here is just a disgrace. Your consultation periods an absolute abysmal abomination even, and you completely failed to notify any residents. My concern is, and my question is, why were alternative provisions not provided as a matter of course prior to any changes? And no, I didn't get any letter of any text there with me rates bill.
Okay, so a change in service doesn't require us to do a consultation, and I think it's fair to say that until the problems actually occur, we can't anticipate what they are. So there are some households, some in my area who I've spoken to who are bigger than the average for, who are coping just fine, and there are others for reasons that we wouldn't know that aren't, and it is only until they're brought to our attention that we can deal with it. As I have said, and obviously I haven't articulated myself very well, we have been dealing with flats for many years and trying to ensure that we have enough information so that we could assist them accordingly. I feel, and I have expressed a number of times, that we did give information out on your rates bill. There was a leaflet drop, there were a number of adverts in the papers, there were radio adverts. I'm not entirely sure. I appreciate that if not everybody got the information, we could have done it better, but if somebody has some idea of how we could communicate more or better than what we have done, then please let us know, because I feel that we really try in all various different ways to send out the information to do that. I personally, we had surgeries for our constituents where we let people know that we were going to be there. I had one of the operatives from the waste services there that could answer any questions, and we had 2 people turn up, neither of which wanted to talk about their waste services. We can only give as much as we get back as well, and we're desperately trying to help people, and when people have come to us, we are helping them. The service has only been running for 10 weeks, and when we get into the position that we've helped everybody who has come to us, and we will help people if they want help. We have been helping them, and we will help them. We can't do more than that.
Gentleman in the orange coat there, please.
Right, thanks for doing it tonight. I don't find you arrogant. I just think there were some people who come here with a level of hostility and closed minds, and they're always going to describe you as arrogant in your speech. I think you've been very flexible about this. I think it's very standard service, and in fact, lots of countries that don't collect waste provide curbside collection. Lots of people who have to go, for example, I know from Sweden, they have to go to a central place themselves and carry all the waste there. Now, I have a household of 4, and every 2 weeks I've just got half to 3/4 of the domestic waste bin full. I recycle everything. I'm very proud of it. The only problem I have is I can't recycle all plastics as far as I'm aware. There's certain plastics I'd like to be able to recycle, but I can't. So that'd be my only point. If it's possible to improve that. But I think it's doing a great job as much as you can. It's amazing to have a curbside collection service. And people don't appreciate it in other countries. They don't appreciate it here because they haven't seen in other countries. And in Sweden, that I'm familiar with, they even charge tax on collecting domestic waste. So you're very lucky in that respect as well. They weigh them in and they charge on that. So I think they've done a great job, and people need to be more open-minded at this meeting and listen to them.
Thank you very much. Just to comment on the plastics, I appreciate what you've said, and we are always looking to improve what we can, which is why we now can recycle more plastic than what we did in the past. And as the service is used more, we will look to increase our plastic that we can take in. Thank you.
Okay, gentleman in the blue pullover here, please.
Thank you. I won't call you arrogant either, but did come across as a bit lecturers, and all of the problems seem to be our fault. You know, I think the thing I'm taking from this is the change management process seems very hit and miss. When you're looking at risk management, health and safety, when you're looking at impact analysis, and all your impact analysis seems to be getting done now. You change the process and you've got all these problems that you don't seem to foresee. As far as recycling is concerned, we have to put our recycle shoeboxes on the path. That's the only place we've only got place for 2. We do recycle. I go to the tip all the time, and we probably could cope with one bin collection fortnightly. But you've said yourself, it's the cartons that we're given are not the ideal solution. In the UK, you get 3 wheelie bins, which is great. We fill our cartons up in 2 days, and so I think a lot of this could have been pre-thought out a little bit better.
Yep. Thank you for that. We did foresee many of the problems, but we cannot really predict how the public will react to all the changes that were going to come forward. We also depend on people coming to us, to the council, and reporting where the problems are. Because in some of the cases, the council doesn't know exactly what is going on with a particular property, and the council also needs permission to install recycling communal bins, for example, also properties. The management company needs to agree to those changes, so we are quite often depending on management companies communicating with us to be implementing changes at the curbsides. Regarding the street, what you said regarding the boxes on the street, we are continuously monitoring and thinking about possible changes, and one of the things that we have now made is that we have ordered boxes that have a lid with a hinge, so that hopefully then will lead to, for some properties, it might be a good solution to avoid wind impacts, stuff blowing away. But it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It might be that the boxes and nets are good for some properties, and the ones with the lids in another property.
Sorry, I just want to quickly add to that as well. A lot of the authorities across don't do exactly the same as what we do here. They use the boxes we use, they do curbside collection. It is varied throughout. The reason that we don't use the bins, the co-mingled system, is because we don't have a facility on the Isle of Man where you have to then take it and sort it. So that's why our sorting is done on the curbside. I appreciate that the boxes don't suit everybody. I totally get it, which is why we, as Volker said, we continuously look to see what we can do, but we have to remember that they've got to be liftable, so that the staff who are collecting them are able to pick them up and stand next to the bins, the actual wagons themselves.
Mr. Ashford.
I mean, we've heard a lot about recycling, and I don't think we're here tonight because people are against recycling. In fact, of all the people who've contacted me, there's only one individual that has actually, excuse the pun, said recycling is rubbish. But would you actually accept that the reason we're actually here tonight is basically because people are feeling the policy's being done to them rather than having gone on a journey? Instead of the council taking people on a journey with them, they feel that they've sort of been hit over the head and told where the destination's going to be and that you're already there. And in relation to the recycling, I mean, I've been around Manx politics long enough to remember when the curbside came in, and the curbside was never designed to be a replacement for the general waste policy. It was designed to complement it, not the other way round. And it's just been said tonight, I want to go back to the opening remarks, that things can't be anticipated. Well, off the figures on the opening remark where the waste audit was done, if I noted it down right, it was said that even after recyclates were taken out, there was 3 out of 10 bins that were still full. Well, the last census has 11,806 households in Douglas, so even on those own figures, that's 3,500 properties that would have full bins even with the recyclates taken out. So I'm just wanting to know what's being done to try and anticipate that and deal with it now, because the problem is as well, the thing I keep getting fed back to me is people feel it's very big brother, whether it's called a waste audit, a waste assessment, whatever you call it, whether it's rummaging in the garbage or not, people are feeling that they're being told how to live their lives, and that's why people have reacted badly to it. People want, if you're going to do something like this, you need to prepare people for it and give them time to prepare and take them on that journey and engage with them. And again, I think what's made people angry about it is they feel there hasn't been that level of engagement.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to correct the whole 10 and a 3 thing, what I said was, once all the recycling materials and the things that could be either recycled or green waste were taken out of the 10 bins, what was left filled 3 of the 10 bins. So just to correct that, the majority of the bins that were audited were half full when they were collected, was what I said. So I'm hoping that answers your question. I appreciate that people may feel like we've not been taken on a journey. I'm not entirely sure how. If I'm on, I can't undo what we've done, is the reality. It was announced in no, sorry, can I just finish? What I'm saying is that it was announced in January and information was fed to everybody between January and when the service started in October. No?
That didn't happen.
It did happen. We sent out information, leaflets were sent out, there were road shows, there was an awful lot of information. The reason why we go to individual properties to help them when they've got issues is because every property has got a different type of issue, and we want to make sure that the information we're giving them and the help that we're giving them suits them as a household. You know, we're all saying that it's broad strokes, and broad brush strokes don't fit everybody. They don't, which is why we're dealing with people on an individual basis. We're not dealing with every flat complex in the same way. If there is a household with a problem, we're helping them individually. Council members are helping, the officers are helping. We're available to talk to, that's what we're here for. So
You have an action plan first before you put things into action. You haven't got the action.
Gentleman underneath the heart at the back there with the blue jumper on.
Got to admit, I'm not here as a Douglas resident. I'm here on behalf of one of the management companies. Firstly, over the past 12 months, when you say there's been engagement with management companies, the dozen properties that I'm dealing with in Douglas have had no engagement at all. We found capacity issues straight away. We've spoken with other management companies and they've encountered the same problems. Problems that we encounter are some of the newer complexes, 20, 30 years old, have been designed with bin storage specifically for weekly collection. Now, you say regularly there, oh, we can give you some boxes. There's no capacity. You know, you've got, I'm going to pick Spectrum, not one of mine, but there's 160 apartments there. You're going to have 400 people living there, all producing. It's built specifically for a weekly collection, and I don't think you can give out boxes and put bricks in them to stop them blowing away the promenade. You know, the individual management companies for each block haven't been engaged at all. And when you look at the number of residents that across, speaking with other management companies, this must cover 3,000 people that have just not been engaged because the ratepayer may be the owner and not the individual occupier of these blocks, and a lot of people have no information.
Well, I'm very glad that you came tonight. I would like to ask you to leave your contact details with us so that we can find a solution for those properties that you manage. And we would like to help all those residents of your properties. Regarding the design of the properties, one thing that the council has done now for multiple years is work together with developers of flats to ensure that the the bin stores that they put in have a sufficient size. Of course, this has only been going on for a number of years. So many of the flats that have been built over the many decades and even sometimes centuries ago still have problems. However, we have solutions for properties like that. So we have communal recycling bins, and we might also be able to tweak something with the residual waste bins. So sometimes we can, for example, increase capacity by taking out a black bin and putting one with more capacity. So for example, the 660 litre bins and the 1100 litre bins have the same length, so they can be quite easily upgraded. But it very much depends on the layout of your bin store. So our waste services manager would look into your specific locations and try to find a solution for the 12 properties that you manage. Please leave your contact details with us.
A lady here in the front with the grey suit on.
Firstly, I will state that I and my immediate neighbours recycle and have done so for quite some time, but are probably more conscious of it now since going on to the fortnightly collections, but I appreciate that not everyone recycles. However, since this came into being, I have observed the following. Firstly, longtails have been seen in our back lane, and these were certainly not seen prior to the change in waste collection. Secondly, I and my immediate neighbours have all had to call on environmental services regarding mice in our attics. Now, we did report this to the council, and I can't say they were very helpful other than it's nothing to do with us, get on to environmental help. I have never known this in the 6 years that we've lived in the property. We have never had a mice infestation. These instances can only be attributed to the fact that there is a more readily food source available in our area. Thirdly, there have been full black bin bags discarded at the end of our street and other areas in close proximity, which attract seagulls and cats, resulting in waste being openly spread. This obviously has a knock-on effect upon other departments within the corporation in relation to their collection and disposal of such waste, and thus, I would imagine, putting additional workload and costs onto other departments. Surely this is false economy. I'd appreciate your comments.
Thank you very much. We have been in contact with Environmental Health over the past few months, and they have actually said to us that there have been no increases in what... I can only tell you what we're being told, and that's what we're being told. We are communicating with them, and that is what they're saying to us. What I would ask is that if you could leave us your details so that we can find out where the issue is with regards to fly tipping at the end of your lanes, and we'll be able to deal with that accordingly.
A lady at the back corner up by the Santa there, please.
I'm just a bit confused. Have you actually done an impact assessment before you brought these changes into place? Looking at the social, economic, the resource and environment impacts? And if so, where is it published and where can we get a copy of it? On the same vein, you're saying you're 10 weeks in and you're not about to change the decision, but what kind of review have you undertaken in the past 10 weeks? And again, where is that in public that we can see where you've come to the decision and how the review is going? You're constantly saying you're not seeing this, you're not getting that. Where is your evidence? Where is it published? So if there is no long-tail infestation, where is your evidence that there is none? You're saying you talk to environment, but where is all your evidence? You're supposed to be doing an impact assessment or review. You brought quite a big change into the ratepayers of difference. and we don't see any evidence.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Regarding the impact assessment, we have done an internal one, but of course there is also, those schemes have been done all over the UK, and there is a charity called RAP, Based on Resource Action Program, which has done intensive studies in this area, far beyond anything that the council could do. And they have analyzed scheme changes in different parts of the UK and what the common problems were, what common perceptions from the public were, what things should be improved, and what and how those changes should be communicated. Our strategy has been aligned to that, so we have learned from that, and that has been one of our original sources. For the review, the second question, it's way too early to undertake a review. A review takes considerable resources.
Sorry, you're 10 weeks in, you should be reviewing this every so often. You don't wait until there's an issue.
A review is very resource intensive and it's costly, so we can't just constantly review. We can't just, all the different actions that the councils undertake, we don't consistently review after every couple of weeks.
But you're getting complaints. You know a social media campaign is underway. All these people are sitting in here. You should be reviewing. You should have been reviewing this before you came to the meeting tonight.
So we have reviewed particular elements of the scheme, as evidenced by the decision to extend the garden-based collections. So that has been extended for 1 month. We have reviewed other elements, for example, the collection boxes. We have now ordered the collection boxes with bins. We have reviewed other things, for example, how to communicate and so on. So there are always things that we're trying to incrementally improve. However, the service as a whole is way too early to be reviewed.
So will you publish all these reviews? Or will you publish the impact assessment so that we can see where you think you're coming from?
Just say that.
Yes, after screening everything for confidential information and some, whether there are any GDPR issues and so on, what that is left of that we can, of course, publicize.
Okay, Mrs. Christian next, please.
So I have quite a lot of questions, so I apologise. You've advised of your communication campaign prior to the service changing. What have you done since the service change started to advise people of how you can help them? My next question is why didn't you actively identify the apartment blocks in the areas that were going to have problems before? Why did you not actively do this before the scheme started? Since the scheme has started, how many additional, and you may not have this information, but I would hope that you'll supply it. Since the scheme started, how many additional black bins have you supplied? How many are still waiting for supply? What is the current lead time? Have you refused any black bins? What has the additional cost been to the council? Do you regret not doing a consultation? That is really, really key. I would like to ask you, councillors, what will it take for you to revert this decision? Is it not best to revert the decision, do a consultation, find out the facts, go to these apartment blocks, help them, help the individuals that are here tonight, and then, possibly then, reinstate it? Thank you.
I think it's fair to say it doesn't really matter what I say now, so I'll do the best I can. We have had 124 requests for assistance, 78 of which we have conducted. I don't have the percentage of how many of them I haven't got the actual number in relation to how many people we gave extra bins, but it was a very small number. It was below 5 definitely of how many people we actually gave extra capacity to. I don't have more details than that, but I'm fairly sure at some point in the future we can share this. If everybody's willing to come with us and help, we won't need to reinstate a weekly collection. The vast majority, I've been around my own estate when it was our collections, and one out of the area that I drove around had a side waste. Everybody else was coping fine and they were able to put the recycling out, which means the vast majority of people within Douglas are coping and it's working.
It means you live in a middle class area with lots of drive space and garden space, that's what it means.
Yeah, just because there's no waste alongside doesn't mean to say that people aren't coping. They could be keeping other waste inside their property. Yeah.
So, those fortnightly refuse collection schemes, which are part of the overall waste changes for Douglas, are never popular when they are introduced. It depends, like all across the UK, people are initially against it. However, if we look on what actually happens after a number of years, when people are used to the scheme, even after a couple of months in many cases, people are changing their habits. They are getting nudged into the right direction, and once new habits are formed, those schemes are resulting in the right behavior changes and are providing the numbers. For many, many years, the council has tried to raise recycling rates through educating people, communicating, and doing all those things that everybody would like to see. However, it was just so easy for the majority of residents to throw everything in the black bin. And even though the council has tried for many years to make recycling as easy as possible, as long as it's just so easy to throw everything in the black bin, some people unfortunately can never be reached and convinced to recycle. So we had to bring those two a bit closer together and nudge people to do the right thing.
Just so happened to coincide.
It has been intensively studied in the UK what impacts a local authority can make by changing the waste provision in their local authority. And those changes that we have made are exactly the ones, the biggest influencers that a recycling local authority can make. It is about introducing a garden waste collection and reducing the capacity for black bins.
Sorry, just to go back, we don't have the answers to all your questions to hand, so if you want to email them to me, I'll happily respond to them.
How long does it take for a bin, black bin on order now?
On average 2 weeks.
On average 2 weeks.
If you have had a visit from one of...
an assessment, you won't be able to get to black bin.
Sorry, say that again.
Between now and Christmas, if you order one now, you won't be able to get to black
As
bin.
per every Christmas, we are aware that there is extra waste that is being prepared for by the same way that we do every year, where people, if they put side waste on, we will happily collect it over Christmas. We do it every year. We make ourselves available. The operatives are working throughout Christmas. Your bin will be collected in the same way as it is now, in the day that it's collected throughout Christmas. It won't change. And if you happen to have extra waste that is on the side, we will take that. And that is how we will be dealing with Christmas, in the same way as we've dealt with it every year.
Mr. Chiapelli. Mr. Chiapelli.
Hello, good evening, everybody. I would like to ask the panel 2 questions, but I make a preliminary observation. It seems to me that there is a palpable democratic deficit which is coming across in terms of the feeling and emotion expressed this evening. And I think we need to ground future action based on the mandate
of the Douglas Council, which is, after all, a democratically appointed body. And it seems to me that, well, I have two questions. First, based on those observations, what was the democratic mandate by reference to specific manifesto pledges in council member manifestos which led to this decision being taken? And in the same vein, given the strength of feeling in this room, will the chair ask for a show of hands as to whether or not the people here assembled support the decision or indeed wish to have it reversed? Because I think we need to put the focus back on the people that have voted the council members in, and note the considerable dissatisfaction expressed in this room. Thank you.
I, for one, have had it in my manifesto saying that I would propose that switch to fortnightly collections, and I was voted in. I don't know exactly what every other councillor had in their manifestos, but we are living in a representative democracy, not in a direct democracy. And it's a representative democracy. We have to, the representatives, the elected bodies, have to have more access to information, and are elected to act on the constituents' behalf to make the best decisions that they deem right. So the people are not consulted on every decision on things like, for example, tax rises and so on. There might be very different opinions in the room to what sometimes politicians have to do, and that is all across the spectrum. Margaret Thatcher, as a very prominent example, has put in horrendous decisions, but she was elected to do things. Of course, we are nothing like Margaret Thatcher, and our society is much more civil, but just showing to you, it is very much within the legal remit, and we are trying to do the right thing here. We are not elected to do exactly what the whole body Douglas wants at any given moment, but we are trying to do what is right for the city of Douglas.
Gentleman over there on the ramp in the black coat.
Given what you've heard tonight from everybody here and the photographs you've seen on social media, it is quite clear that Douglas is currently dirty. Does Douglas Council feel, or is it satisfied, that it is fulfilling its duty under the Public Health Act 1990 regarding the collection of waste? And does Douglas Council consider that it could be at risk of having the function transferred to another authority or the Department of Infrastructure as listed under Section 5 of the Local Authority Act 1985, a failure to carry out that function?
I don't believe that we are not fulfilling our function. I think we are. We're just doing it in a different way to what it was done before. And I would like to emphasise that we are not the only parish on the Isle of Man who do bi-weekly collections. We are the only parish on the Isle of Man who provide a comprehensive recycling service over and above what you get on your bi-weekly collection. I'm afraid I don't believe Douglas is dirty. I believe that our operatives do an amazing job, and they do empty the bins and they do pick up where necessary.
Gentleman in the middle of the back row, right at the back there, please. Yeah, with a blue jumper on. Yeah. No, sorry, I meant, oh, sorry, this gentleman up here, right at the back, sorry. Oh yeah. I'll try and get round to everybody in due course.
Hello? Councillor Holman, you have...
Sorry, can't hear you.
Councillor Holman, you
on the 9th of February, presented by Councillor Pitts, and this was to look at the online consultation for people to understand what went on at that online consultation. But unfortunately, we banned those minutes in the meeting. They're on your website, and you won't publish them. What have you got to hide from that?
Thank you for the question. I think if I understand you correctly, it is regarding the consultation that was sent out to people in Douglas many months ago and asked them about their views on waste and recycling issues in Douglas. That consultation had names and GDPR things in it, and it can't be published. However, the council is going to review it's going to change its way it undertakes those surveys, and in the future those results will be published on future consultations. As a general policy, the council does not publicize all the consultation results, survey results. It was a survey rather than much more than a consultation. And this is not a common habit. So we are going to look into it in the future and improve on that, but we can't do it reactively.
Councillor, I'll just say that I had to apply for freedom of information to that information. And if that policy had been very good from your point of view, the town crier would be able to be spelled telling everybody about it. You covered that up.
Sorry, I just need clarification. I don't understand what you mean by minutes or not minutes to what exactly, sorry.
On your website, on the council meeting that might particularly, Councillor Pitts asked questions about the online survey carried out by the public. I know a number of people filled those out and they were heavily weighted towards what you wanted them to do. And only where you could put in at the bottom of the notes issues that you really were concerned about, you weighted towards yes, and we want the council to do this, and we want the guest vote. And then it turns out on the 9th of February, I asked my councillor, can you publish the outcome of that online survey? And Paul Gordon was down and saying, no, I'm not going to publish it.
Okay, so the reason that it can't be published is because it had personal information on that was. Well, so it was about an attitude survey in relation to what people thought about it. So what we will do when we do our next survey is we will have the questions in a way that we will be able to publish them so that they don't provide people's personal information, and that is the reason why we didn't publish them.
Well, you could redact that. You could redact that, and basically you would have an impact assessment done by them.
Okay, thank you very much. I've taken on board what you've said, and we'll have a look and see if there is an option for us to redact the information and provide that. Thank you.
Councillor Wells, Councillor Horning. I'm not adverse to recycling. We do it in our household. However, this was mentioned in 2018 in the council, and I clearly remember Mr. Christian standing by me and saying, by all means, bring this forward, but let's see who's brave enough to put it on their manifesto. Nobody saw anything coming forward before then, and nobody saw anything coming forward until the rates came out. What you did say before was that 90% of households have 4 or fewer. That may well change because a lot of the young adults cannot afford to move away from home. In fact, they're moving back in with the parents because they can't get on the ladder and they can't rent. So those statistics, albeit while they're perhaps okay now, they may not be in another 12 months. You said before that we manage our own rubbish. So I'd like to ask you, in respect of the 25,000 saving that you said is not true, can you give us a figure of what the saving is?
Okay, so with regards to £25,000, what I was saying is that it was wrongly put out in the media that the reason for us to go to fortnightly collections was to save £25,000. That was never the idea in the first place. They have been savings, which are always taken into consideration when we do our rates. So anything that we've saved in relation to our green waste collection. So just to try and clarify in relation to that, anything that we take to, and I'm going to just pick a figure because it's easier to articulate in this way. If we take something to the energy from waste plant, it costs us £100 per tonne of waste that we take there. Anything we take out of that, we wouldn't have to pay for it to go to the energy from waste plant. With regards to our green waste, it costs us half of that if we take that out of that energy stream and we recycle it. That is a big saving to the whole of Douglas, and anything that we have saved from that then goes back into our calculations when we do the rates at the end of the year. Any savings that we can make, now bear in mind that we, year on year, and ever since I've been a council member, we have been cutting down on everything that we can. We're at the absolute bare bones of what we do now. So we have a lot of costs that come in that are beyond our control. Energy from waste is one of them, and we have to try and make sure that everything that we can do is done to save the Douglas ratepayer. But anything that we do is far outweighed by the costs that are put on us that we have no control over. So it doesn't really matter if I say it's £25,000 or £80,000. The reality of both of those figures is that they are already built into the budget, and they are a very small percentage of the increase. So if the increase last year was 3.7%, if we hadn't made a change to the system, it would have been 5%. But we're doing our best to ensure that when the rate increases come out, they really are at the lowest level that we can make them in order for us to continue the service that we provide.
Would you agree though with your £25,000 that you've given as a nominal figure, that rates have already been paid, so we as ratepayers should know the actual true figure? And not only that, you're looking at one of the mission statements said to question and challenge and help and secure value for money in the provision of council services. We've always said in the council that we should not reduce the rates and reduce services, and we shouldn't reduce services to reduce the rates. However, we're not reducing the service, we are reducing the services, here, but if the recycling takes off and reaches 50%, so at the moment you said it was static, then it went from 5% to 15%. What exactly does that mean? Where's the 5 and 15%? Is it volume? Is it properties? And what timescale is this that the recycling's sort of grown? What I would say is, with the recycling, if it gets to the 50% level, which is what I presume that you want, you're looking for a greener, cleaner Douglas. Is the pollution not coming from our cars going down to the civic amenity site? What about the residual rubbish that you said isn't outside the bins? The civic amenity site's been closed for a few days because their bins or their skips have been too full. Is that the reason why? And if so, if it's closed, then you're having to take that bin wagon up to the energy from waste plant. Am I correct?
So there were quite a number of questions there. I'll try to address them one by one. Regarding the waste figures, those were by weight rather than by volume. And of course, many of the materials that we take out for the recycling take quite a lot of volume. So for example, the plastics, the cardboard and cans, they don't weigh very much, but they take a lot of space in the bin. So when people can recycle them, they have a lot of additional capacity in their back bin. Regarding the Eastern Civic Community site, the waste was closed because of the weather. In the last days, there was a lot of ice on the roads, and for the health and safety of the residents and indeed the operators, we had to close the site. Regarding emissions, there is a very wide picture here on all kinds of things. So there is the emissions that residents create driving their residual waste to the city community site if they choose not to recycle and don't have any other means. However, those are hopefully quite a few going forward, and getting fewer every month, hopefully. There is, on the other hand, the saving of people not having to go to the civic community site anymore to dispose of their garden waste. So those are going to be on the other side of the coin. And then we also have all kinds of other emissions to consider. So when materials are being produced, they create emissions. If you want to produce paper, you have to cut down trees. If you want to create cans, you have to mine minerals, and those are creating huge emissions. So if you can, for example, recycle one aluminium can, you save about 90% of the energy, and just the recycling of one aluminium can run your television for about 4 hours. There are also there's pollution with water and seas to consider when creating virgin materials. And then also when we come to the incinerator, I'm quite actually surprised that this hasn't been brought up too much today, but all the stuff that goes into the black bins doesn't just vanish into thin air. There is bottom ash produced in considerable amount by that stuff that goes into the incinerator. It's about 20% of the weight that goes into the incinerator comes out of bottom ash. 3% comes additionally out as fly ash. And a lot of gas oil is also used to run the incinerator, so it's not as environmentally friendly as a solution as some people might have in their mind. It produces 7% of the power on the island, but about 25% of the emissions for power production. So having the incinerator as an ideal solution is really very, very far from the truth when it comes to the environment.
A gentleman at the back on the side there's been waiting some time. The glasses, that's it. Yeah, thank you.
It's a question for Councillor Wells. She said earlier that there's no health impact. We have a backyard that's 6 metres by 3 metres. Half of that's taken up by a sitting space that I've got. So we have a dustbin sat a couple of feet away from us. We can't go out into the back lane because you give letters out saying you're going to get fined if the bin goes out in the back lane, apart from on bin day. So I can't use my bins. I can't use my backyard now because the bin is sat a couple of feet away from me for 2 weeks. So that means I have no outdoor space for summer. So it's all right if you've got a garden and you've got a big driveway, but a lot of us in central Douglas don't have that. We just have a little concrete yard. So what do you expect us to do? We recycle everything we can, and yet we don't have green waste because we don't have a garden. So you basically cut our service by 50%. You put green waste to people who can use it. We can't use it. So we're getting less of a service every time.
So, sorry, I just want to clarify, you're saying because you can't now put your bin in your back lane, and it's in your back, sorry, I'm not understanding what you're saying, because your black bin is now in your back garden because you're concerned about it.
It's been in the back garden the whole time.
Okay.
But it used to get emptied once a week.
Yeah.
So after a couple of days, it starts stinking in summer, and we've got flies hopping around everywhere. We're not going to be able to sit out in the backyard, are we? So we stinking. You've got a garden probably, haven't you? Have you got a garden?
I do have a garden, yeah.
So you're all right then, aren't you? Those of us in central Douglas don't have that. So you've never ever questioned that, have you? You never asked how you managing in central Douglas when you've got a little concrete backyard. We can't put the bins anywhere, so you have to sit outside and stinking.
I'm exactly the same.
I would suggest that if everything that is being recycled is being recycled and the bin lid is shut, then it shouldn't cause you an awful lot of issue.
Seriously? It doesn't cause any... You just bury your head in the sand like.
If the bin lid is properly closed, there should not be any odors coming out. If you are, however, very much concerned about this topic, you can double bag your bins, your waste, and then it should be even less of an issue. If you really consider that small amount of plastic to be an issue in contrast to the big amounts of waste that is averted by recycling materials and all that emissions, then that's a very false economy.
Stop, Richard, start listening, eh?
Gentleman just up on the side here by the snowman there, please. Yeah.
Well, hello everybody. We're having a conversation between each other here. I'll wait for them to finish. Anyhow, from what I've taken so far from this meeting is it's our fault. We're not doing as we're told. And if only we would do better. So that's the start of what I see. But it is our fault. It is our fault because we allowed these councillors to do this. Some of them have been elected or go on the council unelected, unopposed, and have walked in and they've voted for this big change. It's a massive change, despite what we are told from our friends over who may go to Sweden. But what I wanted to say is, this to me highlights a problem we've got. Lower Douglas and Flatland. Lower Douglas mainly built for the Victorian tourist trade. And some of us still live in that area. I do, certainly in the main road. We have got the smallest front garden. We've got the smallest yard at the back. We've got 3 bins because all the houses are not unique. They've been repurposed to apartments. And consequently, we have simply no space for we have 2 recycling bins in the front, which is very small, and with no space at the back. Now, I did take the offer up from the council. I got somebody to come around. Now, do you know what I was told? If we only get some pallets and build a little cage, we could stack a few more up in the front garden. We do try our best with our front garden. I'm quite proud of it. It's a nice little few flowers and roses, but if we have more pallets in it, it'll look blinking awful. So I would do what you want to do, if only I had more space. Now I want to finish on this, just to show a flavour of how the council think about waste and litter. Now, some of you may have noticed around the town that litter bins are disappearing. Now, you could be forgiven. Have the litter bins been kicked over? No. Have they been set afire? No. What's happened is people have used them and they took them away because they've been used too much. I did say to Andrew over there, well, Andrew, couldn't you get them to empty the bins, these litter bins, a bit more often? And he said, no, people are abusing it by filling them up. Now, that's what we're up against. Now, I do say, if you're not prepared to listen, councillors, we've only got one option, and that is, the next time around, we have to vote you out. We hope we get people who come in and try and work with the ratepayer who pays the bills for the rates to be emptied and try and come up with a solution, because none of us really want to not do our bit, but we want to do it in a well-managed way that suits our own circumstances. So that's all I've got to say, and thank you for listening.
No, you've had a go, sir, at the back, I'm afraid. Anybody else? I'm going to take one more question. The gentleman at the front here hasn't asked a question yet.
Could I just ask, I'll speak in a loud voice because there's no microphone. I think the point that has come across to me tonight is that the communication from the council has been appalling on this matter, and we hope that it will improve in the future. I talk about the near future. We're about to face Christmas and New Year, which both come within a 14-day period. If the current rate of filling bins is at over 50%, that means, according to my calculation, that on the second collection into the new year, every bin will be at capacity or worse. Is the council going to communicate with people for a change as to what the proposals are to cover the imminent 2-week period? Or are we going to face side waste all over the place?
So I think I answered the question in relation to Christmas collections
No,
earlier
I'm
on.
sorry, you
but
haven't. The point is that I'm saying, where is the communication?
So yes, the answer to your question is yes, we will communicate what we're going to do in relation to Christmas. It is no different to any other year where we...
No, I'm sorry, it is different because we're now on a 2-weekly cycle.
As in we will, as we do every Christmas, we will accept side waste, which we do every Christmas. The bin collections are on the same day over the 2-week period as they were before, and if there is side waste during the period over Christmas and New Year, we will take that. And yes, we will communicate that more as the weeks come in front of us.
Can I also just ask a small follow-up? If we all do more recycling using the boxes and we ask for additional boxes, what provision are you going to make to keep the pavements clear? Because it seems to me, if you look at London, for example, the blight of London at the moment is the number of wheelie bins left on pavements. Do we really want Douglas to look like that? Is the collection of rubbish our sole concern, or are we not proud of the place we live in, architecturally, visually, as an open space? I think that we are being told tonight that rubbish is the only thing of concern, and I think most people here find that thoroughly depressing.
I hope that we all share a common love in our island, in our city here. So we are trying to keep it as lovely as it is. Regarding the number of bins on pavements, those black bins are only going to be set out now every 2 weeks in many areas. So hopefully you will even get fewer bins to see on the number of fewer occasions you will see those bins. Yes, there might be more bins than the collection day is, but it's only half as often. And in some areas it might even entice people to take in their bins more often now that the collection is only every 2 weeks. Unfortunately, even before the service changes have been implemented, there were many areas in Douglas that struggled with the number of bins left in back lanes, and while the council does its utmost to look after those areas and to try to convince people to take them in, and can find people who leave their bins on the pavement, it can't look at every area at once, and the service change hopefully entices people more to take their bins back in.
No, I'm sorry, I think that we're going around in circles a little bit. No?
Can I just make one point, please? I am going to the humidity site myself every other week. I consider myself to be a good recycler. I haven't recycled any more or less since the new policy, but I'm going to the humidity site. I'm not the only person here doing that. I'd like the council to accept that many of us are having to go to the humidity site, and that your numbers don't always stack up, please. I wondered why it's a problem for me, so I called my daughter who lives in the UK, and she's lived in 2 areas in the UK since she moved there. I thought about the recycling that they have in the UK, and the big difference is it's food waste. They have good recycling, fortnightly recycling in the UK, but every week the food is collected, and I believe it's a legal requirement for food waste to be collected every week. I'm not asking you to give us bins for our food waste, we have enough bins. What I'd like you to do is to collect our food waste every week so that we don't have public health issues. And by doing that, you need to collect from the black bins every week to allow us to put our food waste in those bins. If you don't do that, then the UK is at a higher standard than the people of Douglas. We're going to be a dirtier town, dirtier city than all those in the UK because you're not collecting our food waste every week.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I will say that there is no legal requirement in the UK for collecting of food waste, and there's actually only half of the English authorities who run a fortnightly refuse collection who offer food waste services. I do hear what you're saying though, and it is something that I'm sure we can consider in the future if it is viable for us as an authority to do so.
Okay, no, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think that we've sort of gone in very thoroughly into the subject.
Where's the show of hands? Where's it being called now? The show of hands.
Well, excuse me, let me please. If you count the number of people here and the number of people who live in Douglas, is a show of hands going to prove anything? It's a very small percentage of the population. But if you want a show of hands, how many people in the room are in favour of the fortnightly bin collection?
There's your vote at the next election. How many work
How
for the
much is
council?
that?
How many work for the council of those who've got their hands up? Thank you.
They may still be ratepayers.
Also the condition.
They may still be ratepayers. Please, ladies and gentlemen, let's just conduct this meeting with a bit of decorum, all right? How many people would prefer that the bin collection went back to weekly? Well, I think that's fairly conclusive.